The Lions finally won. Gardner Minshew had some fun. The Pack was on bye. Did Houston even try? And New England only knew how to run. Welcome to the Mishpo. Alright, everybody, welcome to the week 14 episode of the Mishpo, last week of the regular season. So exciting. Major implications in this coming week. And, it'll be very interesting to see how things shake out. But before I jump into that, we've got ourselves a classic Bush right here. So we'll crack this puppy and we'll get into some football. Alrighty. We'll jump into the matchups. How about that? First up, me versus Bruce. You could technically say that this one came down to Monday night, as Bruce had Josh Allen, Dawson Knox, Jacoby Myers, and Matt Breida to play. But let's just be honest here. This game was decided at the end of the 3:00 games on Sunday. The weather in that game was, really, really bad. Obviously, the Patriots threw the ball 3 times, which led to Jacoby Myers getting 0 points. Matt Breida had 1.8. Dawson Knox had 3.4, and the really good star quarterback Josh Allen 10.7. So he needed about 80 points between those players, and Bruce didn't even get 80 for his entire team. I ended up beating Bruce 138.86 to 69.5. And surprise, surprise, 100% of people got that one correct. So moving us on to Caleb versus Lincoln. This one was far closer, every matchup was much closer, as that was the biggest spread of the week. Couple pretty close matchups this week. And this one may have been the closest. Lincoln ended up sneaking away here with the victory, 124.72 to 122.3, and 50% of people got that one correct. Moving us on to T-Corn versus Brian. This one was another big blowout. Not quite as big of a blowout as me versus Bruce, but it did actually have the highest scoring team on the week. I'll just cut to it. T-Corn ended up getting the win and a beer. Winning 146.68 to Brian's 92.7. And 75% of people got that one correct. I believe I was the one person that got it incorrect, but that just happens sometimes. Moving us on to Derek versus Adam. This one was a surprise to me, honestly. Looking at the matchup, I really thought Derek had a pretty decent shot to win here. However, Adam's team just balled out. He ended up getting the victory, 124.44 to 103.66, and 0% of people got that one correct. So that was Derek versus Adam. Moving us on to Fiala versus Sam. One of these two teams has been doing pretty good lately, and one of them has just been doing pretty poorly, especially considering the quality of players on the team, and just overall how good of a fantasy player this person is. Generally regarded to be one of the better teams in the league, but not the last couple weeks. Sam got the victory here, 126.72 to 90.36, and 50% of people got that one correct. Moving us on to State Farm versus Colin. This one was probably the lowest scoring total matchup of the week. 2 pretty low scores. And also a bit of a surprise, maybe. Didn't help that Darrell Henderson was active, but he scored 0 points as he got 0 snaps in the game for Colin there. State got the win, 105.42 to 78.22. And 75% of people got that one correct. Moving us on to one of the closest and probably the highest scoring total matchup of the week. Michael versus Abby. Again, this one was, like I said, very close. And a bit surprising how close, considering how these two teams' seasons have been going. But Abby did get the victory here, 131 to 128.5, and 100% of people got that one correct. For the week, I had the most points with 6, there were actually only 4 people that took the survey this week. So not too much competition there. We had a couple 4s, or a couple 5s, I think, and a 4 maybe, but I had 6, so I had the most. And of course, State still leads with the points 61 and 5.5 for total and average. So that was last week's matchups. Alrighty, moving us on to the power rankings. In last place, the team with the worst record, despite winning last week, we've got Adam. You beat Derek, as I mentioned before, in surprising fashion, might I add. And of course, you're going to have a tough matchup, I think, next week. So we'll see how well you can do. Moving us on to number 13, we've got State Farm. Despite trading away all of his players, he managed to get himself a victory last week. And a decent score, probably better than about half the teams in the league last week. Obviously, still think you're one of the worst teams, especially after trading away, as I mentioned, all your star players. But you might have a bit of luck with the bye week coming up. So that's State at 13. Number 12, we've got Sam, 5-8, as well as State, and the 2 teams above Sam as well. Beat Fiala this past week. It was a surprising victory, to say the least. But you got it. And so congrats, 5-8 on the season with 1 week to go. So we'll see if you can get it to being 2 games below 500. Moving us on to number 11, we've got Michael. Pretty solid performance last week. Definitely one of the top scoring teams of the week. And you almost took down one of the Goliaths of this league, and Abby. She has scored the most points on the season by a pretty decent amount too, but not quite enough to do it. So we'll see if you can end the season on a little winning streak. I believe it's at least 1. I'm not sure what it's at, but we'll see if you can get to at least 2. So that is Michael at number 11. Number 10, we've got Alex Fiala. You lost to Sam this past week. Your team's not just been showing up as you would have hoped. And injuries have also been thrown in there, so that's also obviously not going to help. Going to end the season against a pretty evenly matched opponent, I would say. So we'll see if you can turn things around and end the regular season, on a winning streak. Moving us on to number 9, we've got... Holy shit. Lily, chill. You're fine, puppy. What are you freaking out about? Okay, number 9, we've got Brian. Lost to T-Corn this past week, but he was the highest scoring team on the week. You would have beaten a few teams, but not a great performance from you overall. Going up against a decent opponent this upcoming week, so we'll see if you can turn things around and get yourself a victory to put you at 500 for the regular season. Moving us on to number 8, we've got Bruce, lowest scoring team on the week. But still a pretty decent team, which is why you're right in the middle of the pack here. Lost to me, as I mentioned before, but that weather game really did negatively impact you. Obviously, Josh Allen on a normal week will ball out, but that wind and all of that weathery business was not conducive to passing. So we'll see if you can get things turned around and see if you can make a playoff push, because you are potentially, I think, still in the hunt for the playoffs. So that is Bruce at number 8. Number 7, another team that is currently in the hunt for the playoffs, Colin. You lost to State this past week, which is pretty rough considering if you would have won, you would be currently in the playoffs. But, you've got 1 more week to prove that you're worthy, and we'll see if you can do it against an opponent that you could beat. You definitely have a decent shot at beating. It's just a matter of if you guys show up or not. So that is Colin at 7. Number 6, we've got current 6th seed in the playoffs, Derek. You lost to Adam, which is a bit rough because you would pretty much be locked in maybe for the playoffs, assuming you would win this next week. But you lost, which is a bummer, but you can still make the playoffs if you just win and don't score less points than some of the guys behind you. So we'll see if you can do that this next week. So that is Derek at 6. Number 5, we've got Caleb. You lost to Lincoln this past week. It was a pretty close matchup, I believe. So not too much to be ashamed of. You are currently in the playoffs, and I believe you're pretty much locked in, barring some kind of crazy circumstances here. So that is Caleb at number 5. And I believe the top 4 here are locked into the playoffs, so it's just a matter of seeding, which will make for a very spicy last week. Number 4, we've got Lincoln. You barely eked away with a victory there from Caleb, and you currently are the number 1 seed in the men's division, but this week 14 will definitely... guarantee will, win, and you got to bye. So we'll see how well you can fare in that matchup against a pretty decent opponent, if I might say myself. So that is Lincoln number 4. Number 3, we've got Abby, guaranteed 2nd seed in the boys division, I believe. So you've got, because Caleb could pass you or tie you in terms of record, but he's not going to pass you for points unless he scores like 500 points. So you're going to be 2nd seed. Looking forward to that matchup in round 1 of the playoffs for you. So that is Abby at number 3. Number 2, I've got myself. A similar, actually exactly the same situation that Lincoln's facing. If I win this next week, I get the first round bye after, some tumultuous middle of the season, but I've really been coming on strong these last month or so. So got myself at number 2. And of course, number 1, the number 1 seed in the entire league, as well as in the boys division. We've got T-Corn, the best record in the league, highest scoring points last week. So you're doing pretty good going into the playoffs. Obviously this next week, but as long as your team keeps doing what they've been doing, I don't imagine you'll have too many issues in the playoffs for the most part. So that is T-Corn at number 1. All right, now it is time for the Week 14 matchups. First up, arguably for me, not the most implication-ridden matchup of the week, but for me, at least, pretty important. Me versus Lincoln. As I mentioned before, whoever wins this matchup will get the first round bye. Lincoln does have a better record than me at the moment, but of course, if I beat him, then we have the same record, and I've got him beat in terms of points. So this will definitely be a very interesting and just interesting matchup. The big elephant in the room here is Jonathan Taylor, the guy who's been just going off the last 2 months of the season. He's on bye this week, along with the Eagles, so Devonta Smith and Jalen Hurts, my quarterback. So that is definitely advantage to Lincoln. I will be going with Jimmy Garoppolo. Hopefully Alvin Kamara can play, if not Mark Ingram. And then obviously A.J. Dillon's in there as well, and the rest of them is my lineup I've been rocking with all season for the most part. On Lincoln's side of the ball, though, however, he does have Keenan Allen, who currently has COVID. He is vaccinated, so he could possibly get back in time to play on Sunday. For my sake, I hope that does not happen. But obviously, for your sake, Lincoln, you hope it does. Jalen Waddle and Mike Gesicki on your bench are on bye. So that is just a receiver and a tight end that you're not able to use this next week. So I, of course, am going to be picking myself, but I think it could be very close. Yeah, that is me versus Lincoln. Moving us on to Michael versus Fiala. I believe these two teams are eliminated from the playoffs, so I guess it's a seeding for the toilet bowl for Sacco. Corey Davis on Michael's side has been ruled out for the season, so that is a bummer for you as well. Kenny Gainwell is on bye, so quite a few missing guys over there for you, Michael. Michael Pittman on Fiala's side is on bye as well. But other than that, you do have the DeAndre Swift injury that you may have to deal with. And with all that said, though, I do think that Fiala will get the victory. He's got a decent lineup. and some guys that have been underperforming, so we'll see if they can start performing up to their expected level. Moving us on to Adam versus Caleb. We've got, let's see, Caleb, you've got the Colts defense, and they're on bye this week, as well as the Eagles defense and Nelson Aguilar. So you'll be needing to get a new defense. You did make the substitutions for your lineup to account for those byes. And over on Adam's side, you've got Dallas Goedert on bye, but other than that, everybody is going to be playing this week, except for maybe Chase Claypool, currently listed as questionable. But I will be picking Adam for this matchup. He's been rolling pretty good lately, and that'll, of course, be an upset pick, as there is a difference of 3 wins between these two teams, so obviously that'll be an upset if Adam gets a victory. So, moving us on to next matchup, T-Corn versus Adam, or T-Corn versus Abby. This matchup doesn't really mean too much, as both teams are locked into the playoffs. It could determine the different seeding for Abby, potentially. But T-Corn is locked in as that number 1 seed, so it doesn't really matter for him what happens in this matchup. Ramondre Stevenson on T-Corn's side, though, is on bye. And Elijah Mitchell currently questionable, dealing with that concussion from Sunday. And then on Abby's side, there does not appear to be any bye issues. You do have Joe Burrow, who is currently questionable, so we'll see if he plays. However, with all of that said, I will just be taking the team that's been doing pretty good, T-Corn. Obviously, both teams have been doing pretty good, but it's statistically proven that T-Corn has more wins. But Abby does have more points, so I guess who's really the better team? But I will be picking T-Corn in this matchup. Moving us on to State Farm versus Bruce. Quite a few byes over on the Bruce side of the ball here. We've got Myles Gaskin, Jacoby Myers, and Jake Elliott, your kicker. And then on your bench, you've got Marlon Mack and Salvin Ahmed, right? Salvin Ahmed, as well as Kendrick Bourne. So that's like 6 players that are on bye for you there, Bruce. And Miles Sanders on Caleb's side, or State's side. And that is it. Oh, and T.Y. Hilton. So I have a couple byes over there for State. I will be picking State in this matchup. It seems to me that the Bruce bye issues are too much maybe to overcome. So we'll see if Bruce can get some nice waiver wire pickups or whatever. But I will be picking State Farm for this matchup. Moving us on to Colin versus Sam. Colin, if you win here, I believe you are a decent shot to make the playoffs, depending on points, as well as Bruce. So we'll see if you guys can do it. And for this matchup, though, on bye, we've got Boston Scott, Nick Folk, and the New England Patriots defense, currently the one of the best, the number 1 defense in the league. In fact, the 34 best scoring team or player in the entire league, out of all players. So, and that is for Colin, of course. And then on Sam's side, Hunter Henry, Mac Jones, and Naheem Hines are on bye. So quite a few byes in this matchup. I will be picking Sam as the winner here. Think his guys definitely have the higher potential. Not to say that Colin team can't win. This is probably going to be one of the closest matchups of the week. So I could definitely see it going either way for that one. So, but I will be picking Sam. Moving us on to the final matchup of the week, we've got Derek versus Brian, much like Bruce and Colin. I believe if Derek wins, he is in the playoffs, obviously barring the points. And in fact, Brian has the same record as Derek, so he could potentially sneak his way into the playoffs, obviously according to points as well. Let's see how many points here. So Derek, I believe, has the most points out of those teams with 14, 28, 96. And I don't have to go through all the points right now, but it is pretty close. Bruce has 1439 and Colin 1407, and then Brian 1378. So quite a far ways back there for Brian, but the other two teams definitely could catch Derek, obviously depending on what happens this week. As far as injuries and buys go, Taysom Hill is questionable, as well as Austin Eckler for Derek, and then you've got Damian Harris and Tua Tagovailoa and Devontae Parker on bye for Derek's side. We've got Tyra Williams on a bye, as well as Miami defense, Mike Bagley for Brian's side. And doesn't seem... we got Allen Robinson, who's out, but I don't know if you would have started him anyways. But he is there, as well as Darren Waller, who is potentially also going to miss this week. With all of that said, I will be picking Derek, and I do have him down as my lock pick. And I do think that Derek will be the final playoff team. So I believe it'll be me, Colin, or me, Lincoln, T-Corn, Abby, Caleb, and Derek. So... interesting if that comes to fruition. 3 of the teams were in the contention for Sacco, including Derek, who was our Sacco. So, very interesting stuff. Lots of implications this week. Should be exciting. And then we've got playoffs. So, we're winding down to the end of the season here. Get your good players out there. Hope for not as many injuries and, some good games. So, we'll take a quick doozy, diddly dop of this beer here, and then we'll wrap things up. So, be with you in a few. All right. Best of luck to everybody except for Lincoln. And this will be a very interesting final week of the season. As I mentioned, lots of playoff implications. A couple teams right there on the bubble. And some even higher up implications for those teams looking to get the first round by me, hopefully. So that'll do it for this week's episode. I hope you guys all enjoy. And as I said, best of luck to everybody but Lincoln. So with that, thank you and thank you. Alrighty, this flip is going to Lincoln, my opponent this week. Hopefully it lands as a sign of good luck. And that's not to say if it doesn't land that it is bad luck. But it'll just be an extra boost for me. So Lincoln. Interference. So it is an important week. I will be flipping this again. So we'll be going with Lincoln again.